I turned 12 that summer when the most unbelievable thing happened in our quiet little town. A water park called Aqua opened its doors to the public. It became the sole topic of conversation. My best friend Alex and I came across a pamphlet for it, promising enormous slides twisting like snakes, wave pools rolling like the ocean, and a lazy river that offered ultimate relaxation. Naturally, we were both eager to go. For weeks, we pleaded with our parents, exhibiting our best behavior, and even doing some extra chores. We went all out, and at last, our efforts paid off. Our parents gave us 2-day passes to Aqua. The day we went was perfect. The sun shone brightly, the sky was an ideal blue, and the air buzzed with anticipation. We met at the entrance of Aqua, practically bouncing with excitement. As we entered, the park was even more incredible than we had imagined. The sheer size of it was astonishing, with people everywhere laughing, screaming, and splashing around. Alex and I headed straight for the biggest slide, called the Mega Plunge. It was a massive slide with a nearly vertical drop that promised a surge of pure adrenaline. We waited in line for what seemed like forever. Finally reaching the top, my heart pounded against my ribs, but Alex showed no fear. He was smiling widely, like a maniac. We climbed into the inflatable raft provided by the attendant, and then he gave us a push. For the next few seconds, we were a whirlwind of wind and water. The ground vanished beneath us as we rushed down the slide. I felt a blend of terror and excitement, and when we got to the bottom, the rush of water was momentarily blinding. After recovering from our initial adventure, we spent the rest of that afternoon exploring the park. We braved the wave pool, which tossed us around like rag dolls, and leisurely floated down the lazy river, basking in the sun. As hours passed by, the crowd began to thin, but Alex and I decided to try one more slide before heading home. The Aqua Twister. Unlike the others, the Aqua Twister wasn't about speed or height. It was about disorientation. It consisted of enclosed, twisting tunnels that plunged you into darkness, spun you around, then ejected you into a pool of water. "This looks awesome. I can't wait," said Alex, his eyes shining with mischief. As for myself, I was uncertain. "Are you sure? This seems a bit intense," I told him. Alex called me a chicken and assured me that it would be fun, promising that he would be there with me. I knew if I backed out, he would tell everyone that I was a coward, and I would have to face teasing all summer long. So, I swallowed my fear and agreed to go. The line was short, and before long, we were at the entrance. The attendant, who was a bored teenager, outlined the rules, and we hurried inside. The entrance was a dim tunnel, and as we stepped in, darkness enveloped us. A chill ran down my spine. I couldn't see a damn thing. "You ready?" Alex asked, his voice echoing. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, trying to sound braver than I felt. Suddenly, the ground disappeared, and we fell into darkness. The tunnel twisted and turned, spinning us around. I lost all sense of direction. All I could feel was the rush of wind and the cold, damp slide against my skin. I yelled, but my voice was swallowed by the abyss. I could hear Alex shouting too. His voice was distorted and distant. The spinning made me dizzy, and nausea surged through me. Just as abruptly as it started, the ride ended, and I was ejected into a pool of water. Gasping for breath, blinking, I tried to regain my bearings. Alex was right next to me, coughing and sputtering as well. "That was intense," he said, his voice trembling. Intense is an understatement. I think I'm going to be sick, I replied, still catching my breath. We climbed out of the pool and rested on a nearby bench, trying to recover. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the park. The air had cooled, and the sounds of laughter and splashing had faded. I decided that I had enough of water slides for one day, though we could always return tomorrow. Alex nodded in agreement as we headed toward the exit. Our excitement had been replaced by exhaustion and unease. Passing the aqua twister, I couldn't resist glancing back. Its dark, foreboding entrance seemed to stare at me. We were nearing the main gate when the craziest thing happened. Frantic cries and screams erupted from the pool area. Turning around, we saw people shouting for help and pointing toward the center of the pool. Curiosity overtook us as we dashed toward the chaos. When we got to the pool's edge, we saw why everyone was panicking. A group of people were struggling in the water, their faces twisted with fear. I asked a woman nearby what was happening. In a quivering voice, she said that she didn't know, only that something was dragging people beneath the water. Alex and I exchanged looks of disbelief, then moved closer to the pool. We had to help. As we waded deeper, I felt a particular sensation tugging at my feet. Looking down, I saw the water swirling around me. Before I could react, something hot and constricting wrapped around my ankle and pulled me under. I gasped, swallowing a mouthful of water. I struggled desperately, but whatever held me was too strong, dragging me deeper down. Panic set in. I couldn't breathe, and my lungs ached. I fought with all my strength, but it was futile. I was starting to lose consciousness when, suddenly, the grip released me, and I swam to the surface, emerging and gasping for air. Alex rushed over, grabbed my hand, and pulled me over to the pool's edge, where I collapsed, coughing and sputtering. "What the hell happened?" Alex asked, his face filled with concern. In a raspy voice, I told him that something had dragged me under the water, something that was unbelievably strong. We looked back at the pool. The thrashing swimmers had reached the edge, and the water was calm again. Whatever had been pulling people down, lifeguards were clearing the pool, and people were rushing toward the exits. The park was closing early, and everyone had to leave. Alex and I blended into the crowd, trembling, our thoughts in a whirl. We didn't speak until we were outside, standing in the parking lot. "Dude, what the hell was that?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I have no idea, but I never want to experience anything like this ever again. Let's get out of here." We walked home in silence, the day's events heavy on our minds. Once we got back, I took a hot shower, trying to wash the memory away. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the dark water, the swirling currents, and the shadowy figure that had grabbed my ankle. I tossed and turned. The next day, local news was filled with reports about the incident at Aqua Blast. Witnesses described seeing a bizarre whirlpool and claimed that something was dragging people under. Park officials dismissed the reports, blaming the overcrowding and panic, but Alex and I knew better. We knew that something unusual and terrifying had happened at Aqua Blast, and we vowed to never return. A few weeks later, Aqua Blast was closed indefinitely. The official reason was never clear, but I knew the truth. To this day, I still feel chills when I think back on it. It was a frightening experience that I'll never forget, and it taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes the things that can seem the most fun can also be the most dangerous. was a dreary Monday morning when this all began. I entered the office that day, ready to tackle another long work shift. I was just an ordinary guy, interning at a small tech company. The office was a mixture of open areas, cubicles, and a single brick room stocked with a coffee maker and vending machines. My coworkers were friendly, and I got along with most of them, except for one guy named Carl. Carl was in his late 30s and 4 years older than me. He always made me uneasy. His hair was perpetually disheveled, and he sported a scruffy beard. He wore the same untidy flannel shirts, old jeans, and black boots every day. He was highly skilled at coding, but his social skills were severely lacking. He often made nonsensical or confusing comments. During lunch, Carl usually sat in the break room, while I tried to keep my distance. But he always found a way to insert himself into my conversations. That day, as I ate lunch at my desk, Carl leaned over, his eyes wide with enthusiasm.
Jake, did you know that the human soul departs the body for 7 minutes after death?
I chuckled nervously, unsure how to respond. No, I wasn't aware of that, I said, hoping that he would change the subject. Instead, he launched into an elaborate tale about communicating with the dead, or spirits, whatever. I quickly finished my meal and excused myself, hurrying away before I felt like fainting or yelling at him to leave me alone. Over the next few days, Carl's odd behavior grew stranger. He was often seen whispering to himself or staring blankly at his laptop, fingers poised above the keys. Other coworkers, including the boss, began avoiding him, leaving me feeling guilty for being the only one left, still willing to engage with him. One Friday afternoon, everything changed. The office was quiet, with most people gone for the weekend. I was wrapping up some tasks when I sensed that there was someone behind me. Turning around, I nearly jumped. Carl was right there, his face much closer than I expected.
Do you believe in ghosts, Jake?
Not really, I replied softly. He smiled. It was extremely unsettling.
I believe they're everywhere, and sometimes they communicate with me.
I nodded, not really sure how to respond. Suddenly, the light above us flickered. I brushed it off as a power issue and stammered that I had to get back to work, hoping that would be the end of the conversation. As I turned back to my tasks, I heard Carl's heavy breathing before he walked away. A chill ran down my spine. Monday arrived, and things took a darker turn. I got to the office early to get a head start on some paperwork. I thought I was by myself, except for maybe my boss. Then I heard a strange noise coming from the break room. It sounded like muffled voices talking. Curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to investigate. As I crept down the quiet aisle toward the break room, that familiar dread returned. As I closed in, the voices grew louder and louder. I could distinguish one as Carl's deep tone, while the other was soft and eerie, very unnatural sounding. I was wondering what Carl was up to, and who he might have been talking to. Peering through the break room's glass door, I saw him standing alone in the corner, arms raised, murmuring quietly. I pushed open the door and asked, "Carl, are you all right?" He spun around, and his wide, frantic eyes gave him an almost otherworldly appearance.
I'm trying to reach them. They're trying to communicate with me.
Who's trying to communicate with you? I asked, backing toward the door. He ignored me, resuming his bizarre chanting. Caught between curiosity and a rising dread, I told Carl that he had to stop right now. Suddenly, the lights flickered and the air turned cold. Fear washed over me as Carl's chanting grew frantic. Then a loud crash echoed from down the hall, making me nearly leap out of my skin. "What was that?" I said, my heart racing. Carl turned to me.
"They're angry. We need to listen."
I wanted to flee, but my feet felt like they were glued to the ground, holding me in place. A minute later, I snapped out of it and bolted out of the break room. Grabbing my phone from my desk, I called the police. Glancing back at the break room window, I saw that Carl had vanished, and the office became eerily silent. The cops came and swept the building, but Carl was nowhere to be seen. I spent the rest of that day on edge, glancing over my shoulder. As my other coworkers arrived, I asked one of them from marketing named Sarah, "Hey, have you seen Carl today?" "No, but he's been acting so strange lately. He left early on Friday looking pale and shaky, and I just dismissed it as his quirky personality." Something felt off to me. I couldn't shake the sense that he was in danger, or worse. It was a few days later when the situation escalated. Carl was still absent, and I couldn't stop thinking about what I saw in the break room. It was that Friday, after hours, that I returned to the office to investigate. Something was telling me that I had to be there. As I stepped inside, the lights flickered ominously. "Carl, are you here?" My voice echoed in the empty space, sending chills through my body. Heading toward the break room, my dread intensified. Suddenly I heard a clear whisper.
"Help us."
It was faint, and it sounded like it was coming from the supply closet. My heart raced as I approached cautiously, my hands shaking. "Is someone there?" The door creaked open, and the lights flickered erratically. A stack of cardboard boxes tumbled, revealing Carl, sitting in a corner, looking terrified.
"They're trapped. I can help them,"
he murmured, not acknowledging my presence. I grabbed his arm. "Carl, we need to get the hell out of here." He turned, fear and confusion in his eyes.
"They need me, Jake."
The lights suddenly went out, plunging us into the dark. A cold breeze swept through, and a furious commanding voice boomed.
"Don't interrupt."
Carl gasped, and terror gripped me. "It's not safe here. We have to go," I said, pulling him to his feet. As the lights flickered back on, shadow forms seemed to swirl around us like smoke. I dragged Carl out of the closet, rushing toward the exit. The whispers intensified, trying to pull us back. We burst out of the office, the cool night air hitting us as we sprinted back to the parking lot. Pausing to catch my breath, I glanced back. The office lights flickered one last time before going dark.
What just happened?
I have no idea, but we need to report this to someone. Driving home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that these strange events were far from over. I was worried about Carl and the bizarre forces he believed in. That night taught me a very valuable lesson. Curiosity can lead to frightening places. But even so, I had a moral obligation to help Carl. I didn't want to leave him there in a state of delirium, where he would have to face these unknown horrors alone. No matter how bizarre or terrifying the situation was, I stood by my principles, and I'll do so in the future, regardless of whatever may be lurking in the shadows. There was a story on your channel some time ago about a young lady who was on vacation at a Disney resort in South Carolina, where she encountered a disturbing individual wearing a vintage Mickey Mouse mask. I want to make something perfectly clear. My experience has no connection to hers, and I'm not suggesting that it was the same person she encountered, but I have also seen someone wearing that god-forsaken mask as well. It's something that you never forget. Rumor has it that Disney discontinued that mask because it was just too terrifying for children. The fact that it was ever considered appealing to begin with remains a mystery to me. But enough pretext. Let's get into the story. I still remember this like it was yesterday, even though it happened all the way back in 2004, the year I began first grade. The first day of school always brings some excitement and nervousness, but in my opinion, nothing compares to your very first day of school, the day that you leave daycare and kindergarten behind and officially enter the public education system. For some, that alone might sound like the start of a scary story, but for me, most of my sparse memories of that day are quite pleasant. My teacher was lovely, my classmates were mostly nice, and the classroom felt like an exciting place to learn. I'd even say my first day of elementary school was fun. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the bus ride home. Since I was the only kid from my neighborhood attending that school, my bus stop was not only the last one on the route, but it also was created just for me. My parents and principal had given me very specific instructions on where it was, so I would know where to be dropped off. I also knew that one of my parents would be waiting for me at the stop to make things easier. After all, I was only 6 years old. The trouble started when we got to the second to last stop, and I was the only kid left on the bus. "Hey, you, get off the bus," the driver barked. It wasn't just the volume, but the sharp, stern tone that startled and confused me. Not only were my parents nowhere in sight, but the neighborhood looked completely unfamiliar. When I tried to explain this, the driver only got angrier. "Get off right now, or you'll never be allowed to ride the bus again." Her words filled me with dread. I was a quiet, reserved kid who hated confrontation. My father, the only driver in our family, worked downtown, and my mom wasn't comfortable letting me walk alone. The school bus would be the only way I could get to and from school. The thought of being banned from riding it on my very first day was terrifying. Scared into silence, I got off the bus without another word. I regretted it immediately as the bus drove away. Though my parents had drilled my home address into me, I navigated the world by landmarks, trees, lawn decorations, house roof colors, and even cracks in the sidewalk, but never street signs, not till I was around 10. As I took in my surroundings, the dread returned. The neighborhood was quaint and peaceful, but completely foreign to me. I was a shy, soft-spoken 6-year-old girl who was lost, terrified, and alone. Well, not entirely alone. As I made my way aimlessly down the sidewalk, with tears welling up in my eyes, I saw someone standing in the alley between two houses on my left. They were severely out of place. It was someone wearing dark clothing, a baggy jacket, and a black and white Mickey Mouse mask, its soulless eyes staring directly at me. As soon as I saw him, I burst into tears, closing my eyes. Seconds later, I heard familiar voices calling to me. It was two twin boys who rode my bus. They were a couple of grades above me. They had gotten off at the same stop and had begun to make their way back home when they heard me crying and quickly came back. I looked back to the alleyway, but the masked man was gone. "What are you looking for?" one of them asked. I saw a man wearing a mouse mask standing there just a second ago." "Well, there's no one there now. You probably just saw something because you were scared." After asking me a few more questions, they quickly came up with a plan. One of them would stay with me, while the other went home to get their dad. After a few minutes of standing there, and me nervously looking back to the now empty alleyway, a beige car pulled up beside us. The boy that stayed with me said his father would take me home, and open the rear passenger door for me. I saw his twin brother in the back seat, gesturing for me to get in. But my worries weren't over just yet. My parents also taught me about stranger danger, and I was already shaken to my core because of what I saw in the alley. The thought of getting into a car with a man I had just met and giving him my home address made me want to cry, but I knew if I didn't, I would remain lost. That fear was the only reason I got into the car and told him where I lived. The drive was much shorter than I expected. I had been dropped off just a couple of blocks from my street. Still shaking and full of adrenaline, I felt no relief. It wasn't until I was home and safely in my grandfather's embrace that I could finally relax. To say my parents were furious would be an understatement. The school took the incident seriously, and as soon as they found a replacement, the driver was fired. Neither I nor anyone else had another experience like that again. My claims about seeing someone in a Mickey Mouse mask were basically dismissed as a hallucination. Looking back, I sometimes feel embarrassed, especially since I was only a 10-minute walk from my house. Then I remember I was just 6 years old when that driver threatened to ban me from the bus. I was, and still am, tall for my age, so she might have thought I was older. But no child deserves to be spoken to like that, especially on their first day of school. I'm forever grateful to those boys for caring enough to help. Otherwise, who knows what might have happened to me that day. For years I've questioned if I actually saw a man wearing that Mickey Mouse mask that day. I suppose it's possible that it could have been my imagination, but I think it's more likely that it was someone trying to break into one of those houses. But to a lost, frightened little girl, it might as well have been the devil himself standing there.